man at the center of misconduct accusations against committee members looking into impeachment of the suspended Chief Justice, now released from NIB custody hours after relatives and sympathizers gathered on the frontage of the NIB. Also tonight, we now know fully what considerations the Supreme Court justices made when they sat on that suit seeking to injunct processes leading to the removal of the Chief Justice. Also tonight, Chairman Wumi squeals from self-imposed house arrest, lashing out at the Mahama government only hours after his supporters foiled a national security operation at his residence. Those are the big ones tonight. Remember, you can be a part of the program as you watch us on x.com, YouTube, facebook.com, 3news.com, and listen to us on 392.7 FM. Remember to use the hashtag Ghana Tonight if you comment on any of our top stories. Now we can bring you Ghana Brief.
Ashanti Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Bernard Nkwiboesiakon, popularly known as Chairman Wumi, will report to the National Security Head Office in Accra next week. Counsel for the embattled Ashanti Regional Chairman, Kwame Adom-Appiah, spoke with my colleague William Evans Inkum after national security operatives stormed his house Friday morning.
From the leader of the team, and he told me that they've been asked to bring him to Accra, and we were able to resolve the issue. So later on in the following week, we will make sure that he responds to their invitation. We are not aware of the reason. They never told us. You know, when a constabulary duty is to be done, the policeman's lot is not the best. You are asked to bring the person. That is what they were told.
The Catholic Bishops' Conference has revived calls for the government to show more commitment in the fight against illegal mining, known as galamsey, by declaring a state of emergency in targeted areas affected by the menace. At a meeting with President John Mahama at the Jubilee House, the bishops are demanding a repeal of the Mining and Minerals Act that permits mining in forest reserves and on water bodies. President Mahama is meanwhile assuring the bishops that the efforts of government in tackling the menace will yield results.
The statistics we have is 16% of our forest reserves have been destroyed and encroached upon. It will need both reclamation and rehabilitation of the forest. And we are intending to do that under the carbon credit system, because if you reclaim mined lands and you restore forests, you can claim it under carbon credits. And that will give us more money to reclaim some more of the forest.
The Ghana National Association of Teachers, GNAT, is taking a strong stance against what it describes as the worrying silence of the Ghana Education Service and regional directors over rising attacks on teachers. Speaking to our Labour Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku, the GNAT General Secretary Thomas Tanko Musa urged teachers who feel unsafe or threatened by students to immediately leave the workplace for their own protection.
Tell me, what is going on? Assuming one teacher has done one. Say, punish the teacher. You see GES calling the teacher to come and face the disciplinary committee. But here we are. The teachers are being beaten. People are stabbing their eyes. They are being beaten left, right, center, being tormented and tortured. Why is GES quiet? Why are they quiet? Why are the district directors not talking? Why?
The Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment, Dr. Rashid Pelpuo, has taken a swipe at the Member of Parliament for Oltafo, Vincent Akosifua, over his decision to petition the International Labour Organization, ILO. The minister said government stands by its decision to terminate the appointments and is prepared to justify the dismissals at the ILO conference next week.
Very, very unfair, very, very illogical. In the last, may his soul rest in peace, Atamil's administration, Atamils came and said he was father of all. He did, even including MCEs, DCEs, he didn't dismiss them. He kept them in office for 6 months. He kept everybody in place and said, look, he's a father of all. We should find a way to stop this thing that President Kufuor started by dismissing people. He kept it, and we worked with everybody. When Nanado came into office, everybody, including junior workers, were all dismissed. I don't know why he couldn't see that. Why is he hiding that and just talking about now? He started the trend. They started a trend, and it is working to affect them.
Ghana's national 100-meter record holder, Benjamin Azamati, achieved a season's best time of 9.98 seconds in California, securing qualification to the World Athletics Championship in Tokyo at the McNabb Sprint Series. This performance marks a season best for the sprinter and places him tied for 17th on the official men's 100-meter qualification list for the global event. Athletics coach Elom Amenakpo believes this achievement gives Azamati ample time to prepare for the championship, which is scheduled for September this year.
A lot of work this season. When you look at his trajectory when the outdoor season starts, he keeps improving on race after race, and running that time yesterday, I mean, give him some kind of relief because he booked a qualification which is giving him more room to prepare ahead of the championship that is in September. I mean, every athlete wants to have that early qualification. I don't know if there's going to be a national championship.
It's still GNAT tonight here on TV3 and on 392.7 FM. Coming up, Alfred Kumi leaves NIB custody tonight. All that we know. Alfred Kumi is now a free man after he was released from NIB custody in the last few hours. Alfred Kumi's release comes only hours after his lawyer announced he had been charged with false publication. But I can also tell you no official communication has come out to confirm or deny this. It remains vague why he was arrested, but we know Kumi recently petitioned for the dissolution of the committee investigating the removal of suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono. Now, the basis of his request was solely on a meeting he claimed took place among some members of the committee, including the chair and counsel for one of the petitioners. Subsequently, a CCTV footage released on social media of the said meeting appeared to debunk the claim that a meeting took place at the said restaurant to discuss the committee's work. Kumi was picked barely 24 hours after the video was made public, but has since been released. Yes, Minority Leader Alexander Apenyo-Markin in the company of Kumi after his release.
So, with Alfred Kumi, the man is a free man. We've just picked him up from the BNI or NIB custody. He's been given an unconditional release. We pray that democracy works, and this so-called reset where Everybody is being frustrated, harassed, intimidated, using state security to attack citizens. Will stop. I mean, it's unfortunate, but at long last, there is some common sense.
You just heard the minority leader Alexander Penyo marking the company of the gentleman Alfred Kumi, also known as Adenta Kumi. Now, it would appear that, from that release, Adenta Kumi went straight to the NPP's head office, and there was some jubilation there. The video you just saw is kind Kesi Asase, but this one, which we also have access to, splashed on social media at this time, is one I'd want you to see. The singing, the chanting that welcomed him at the NPP headquarters. Take a look.
We are the new Patriotic Party. We are the new Patriotic Party. The elephants are with the same mood. We shall win to save Ghana. The elephants are with the same mood. We shall win to save Ghana. We shall win. We shall win. We shall win to save Ghana. We shall win to save Ghana. The elephants are with the same mood. We shall win to save Ghana. Rado,
So that's the welcome gathering at the NPP head office for Adenta Kumi. This video now is splashed all over social media. Now we'll break down what this means, but quickly, let me also say that we have seen the situation move very rapidly, because prior to what you have just seen, we also know that Kumi's relatives, including one believed to be his mother, alongside NPP supporters, pitched camp on the frontage of the National Intelligence Bureau offices in a show of solidarity and support. We were there to capture them. Take a look.
How would I give you food?
So there you have it. Relatives, supporters of the party gathering there in the last few hours of the day at the frontage of the NIB in show of solidarity for Adenta Kumi, who we now know has been released from the custody, and as the minority leader mentioned, unconditionally. Again, we'll get into what all of this means for the process we have seen since the early hours of today. But we know that since the release of Adenta Kumi, General Secretary of the opposition NPP, Justin Frimpong Kodia, who you saw only briefly moments ago, thanked supporters for their camaraderie. Let's take a look at what he said. Many thanks to all the patrons who showed up at the NIB, obviously confirming what we have just reported to you. Our cameras captured that gathering at the frontage of the NIB. Denta Kumi, he goes on to say, has been released. Indeed, there is unity in strength, or in unity lies strength, so to speak. And look at the hashtag. Pay attention to that. Say no to state intimidation. Now, that's where we're going to pick our conversation from, because it's important to understand, put all of this into perspective, what exactly is going on here. And to help us do that is security consultant Dr. Victor Doke, who is joining us on this subject matter and a few other issues we'll be looking at today. Good evening, Doc.
Good day to you. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you so much for joining us. Listen, I want us to first let's hear from you your perspective on this matter. This is a gentleman who had petitioned the state to look into alleged misconduct of members of the committee probing the impeachment of the now suspended Chief Justice. Subsequently, a video is released. The video appears to debunk some of the things that the gentleman had made in that, had said in that petition. His lawyer goes on to say that he has been charged with, well, even before then, we see that arrest in his home. Some have questioned whether or not that could have been an invitation. Subsequent to that, then his lawyer says he's been charged with false publication. Here we are, now released unconditionally. You're a security person. What readings are you making into this?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think, one, as a citizen, the responsibility lies with me to give out accurate information and not to misinform or disinform with any kind of motive that I may have. So then if I put out any kind of information that tends to discredit someone or an institution or organization, I have that responsibility to support it with the correct evidence. And if that evidence is found out to be something that is not related to it, then I have to face the law. As a law-abiding citizen, I have to make myself available when I'm being called upon. But the situation here is that when you look at the dynamics playing out, the said gentleman belonging to the MPP in opposition. Now, and this also happens when the NDC is in opposition. The use of the state apparatus here to effect the arrests, okay? Hereby I talk about the national security or the NID to affect such arrests. Some would ask, why don't we use a criminal investigative department of the police to rather lead these arrests? Okay, but then we now resort to the use of the NID or the national security. And this happens if any of the two parties are in power. So this is sort of like a political gimmick attached to it, okay? Now, they know when we use the core security organization or agency, the CID, the probability that they would not respect that invitation is high. So then they resort to the use of these agencies, the NIB or the national security. But in all, I see that the issue about misinformation is getting out of hand.
Right.
And if we are not careful, it will cause a lot of harm before we realize it. It has become somewhat like a political, play for these two political parties, especially when one is in opposition. How do we stay relevant? How do we make our supporters also know that we are fighting a cause? But is that cause justifiable? Is it a cause that would warrant the supporters or even well-meaning Ghanaians to even be on our side? Or is it just a call to misinform the people and then create some kind of tension in the country? We need to look at all those things. Now, if the law says if I publish or say anything which has the probability to cause harm or to discredit anybody or any agency, I have to face the law. I think that is what is playing out. So then, if it means I'm being invited, I have to go and answer questions. So I think whoever in a position or anybody makes a claim and then you don't provide the necessary evidence, know that the law is going to catch up with you. And Keminni, this is just the beginning of what we are seeing. Getting into mid-year and latter part, we are going to see more of these things coming up.
I see. And Doc, what I hear you say is, look, perhaps the NIB may have justification for wanting to speak with Adenta Kumi, but the MO that they used may not have been necessarily the right choice to have made. Is that correct?
Yes. I think go ahead, please.
Right. So here's where I want us to go with that, right? The public discourse has now been reduced to, look, the NPP did the same when they were in office. Does that help the situation? Does that help the reputation, especially of the NIB?
No, it doesn't. Especially when the discourse about politicization has been attached to this one. It tarnishes the image of the security agency itself. That it means that our agencies are no more independent. It has become a political place to fill in political appointees for a purpose. But by and large, let's look at the gains, even if you fill in with political appointees, the gains against the threats that we are facing. By and large, you would expect that these things will happen. That the state agencies, some state agencies will be used, to curb these kind of ills in the society, especially from opposition groups. And this is a form to also instill some discipline in these opposition groups to know that, yes, we are in charge. Now, the argument that when NDC was in a position, it happened to them, now it's the turn of the NPP. It won't help us in any way. Then what will happen is just retributions.
I see. To think that the minority leader, again, we cannot confirm that information, but that's what he says, that Adenta Kumi was released unconditionally. What does it tell you about this entire process?
Well, that's what the honorable minority leader is saying. Now, we only hope to hear from the authorities themselves to know whether the said gentleman was released unconditionally or not. So, it's his word against what the authorities will come and say afterwards.
We have barely heard from them. But I guess the point I'm driving at is, if that be the case, then it would appear that this whole process is a sham. I mean, if there was really something to be dealt with, unconditional release after 12 hours or 16 hours is not, it means there is no serious issue here. Do you get the same impression?
Yes. Assuming he was released unconditionally, then it means then it's all about the show of force, about what the gentleman put out there, and for the agency to know that, hey, you can't not just put anything out there. We just want to give you, some little bit of show of force to know that you can't just do anything like that. And unfortunately or fortunately, he being a member of the NPP also, makes matters worse. So then, assuming it's unconditionally, then why do we waste taxpayers' funds? We're talking about vehicles that is moving out, the manpower, come out into the house of this gentleman, and then take him out there, hold him for how many hours, and then release him afterwards, just to ask him questions about which can be done easily through the state police. I don't see, the essence of this, if what we are hearing is true.
I see. Doc, this is not the only arrest or situation similar to this that we have seen today. we also know that Chairman Wontumi has been speaking from his self-imposed house arrest. I want us to look at that now. So how about you hang in there for me? Let me give the particulars of that story, and then I'll come back to you and pick your thoughts, because most importantly, can we see that story? Most importantly, what we see happening is that many people are reading all sorts of meanings into this and how this could have been done in a better and proper way. But I'll pick your thoughts as a security person, because tonight, Chairman Wontumi is crying out against what he believes to be a targeted attack on him and his businesses. The Ashanti Regional Chairman of the NPP evaded a national security operation by the hair's breadth in the early hours of today. Now, armed operatives besieged Wontumi's home in what is now believed to be a search and seizure operation, which was interrupted by supporters and lawyer for the NPP chairman, known by his government name as Bernard Enchibuesiakom. Now, in an interview on his own radio station, hours after the incident, Wontumi courted public support, and I want you to take a listen.
Ghana for Musorio, Ghana for Musorio, and before you know Musorio, and before you know Musorio, and Munti, and Mahama MC, the vice president. Me, Madam Board Suda, me, my DCO da, me, my minister da, I chairman in the media, and I want to make campaign in Mammy. I'm my campaign in Mammy party, and I'm here, Juma, 2013, we are Saba the Boom, Juma. Bubaye, my topping my human, my count to be Didier was one. Me, my count to club be Didier was one. Cemetery, my school fees, a club higher thing. What I say, most of them will start to my count to show, and Nasabe, me, sick up bane at the family.
You just heard the voice of Chairman Wontumi as he squealed from what we now understand to be a self-imposed house arrest since the attempted arrest on him or operation on his residence by national security operatives. We can now bring in our Northern Bureau Chief, Evans Inkum. He's been following this incident closely. Evans, let's start off with a quick summary of what Chairman Wontumi has been saying in that audio clip.
Well, absolutely. So he is claiming that he never worked in any government institution. And so he sees whatever is happening to him as a witch hunt and is calling on all NPP faithful to rise and speak against what he described as content. Exactly what he said, I mean, in summary.
Indeed. Evans, hang on that connection, because there are some key issues from that emotionally intense and high-pitched audio clip we just heard, and I want to share some of those key things that we picked, key remarks or comments that we picked from that audio clip. The first one being he accusing the government of the day of collapsing his business back in 2013. Since you assumed office, he goes on in that audio clip, you've halted all my operations. Even the bank account I rely on has been frozen. Then there's this one, where he queries, was I ever a vice president? Have I ever chaired a board? Have I ever been a CEO? Was I ever a minister? He goes on to ask. I am only the chairman of the political party, and it is my duty to campaign for my party. Then he will also say, am I not a Ghanaian anymore now that you've won the election and become president? Does that mean I'm no longer a Ghanaian? Obviously, directly addressing the president of the republic, John Dramani Mahama. And then this is where he caused public sympathy. Ghanaians arise, Ghanaians, all NPP supporters should rise. It is because of you that Mahama is treating me this way. Again, another very, direct address to the president, as though it is the president that is after him and his wealth. But Evans, I'm going to bring you back in here because tonight you've been checking in on the situation again. What have you gathered?
Well, so Keminni, I can tell you that Wontumi's residence, or the area where he stays, is deserted. unlike or a sharp contrast to what we saw this morning when it was engulfed by both party supporters and, of course, some security operatives drawn from the national security. Tonight, I've been there a couple of times, and I can tell you that the place looks quite deserted. Well, my understanding is that because there was an agreement that Monday Wontumi will present himself before the CID together with his lawyers. Maybe both parties have agreed, to that earlier engagement.
I see, Evans. Now, at this time, do we really know why that operation was executed or the attempt of execution was made on his home?
Avalanche of speculation. And so one school of thought believed that maybe it has something to do with Akontamai. Don't forget that not too long ago, his aide was also invited. He was sent to court and he was granted a bail to a sum, I think, 200,000 or so. Then there's another school of thought who is also claiming, or that is also claiming that it has to do with an alleged cocoa board road contract. Both claims we cannot independently verify because as I speak to you now, there hasn't been any official charge, on Wontumi. Early on, I spoke with his counsel, who happens to be the Ashanti Regional Secretary of the party, Adoma Pia, and he's saying that he doesn't want to make any conjecture because for now, or till now, they haven't been served or they haven't been charged. So they are still waiting on the national security, or if you like, the CID, to formally charge Wontumi, so they can also file the defense.
Evans, I appreciate the reporting. Thank you so much for talking to us. Evans Inkum is our Northern Bureau Chief. He's been giving us the very latest he's gathered so far on the attempted operation on Wuntumi's residence earlier today by the National Intelligence Bureau. But still with us is Dr. Victor Doke, who is a security consultant. Doc, you have seen the narration in the Chairman Wontumi situation as well. I've heard people, other analysts have spoken to say, well, the national security can take up any operation in any form that they want. And civilians, like the supporters who were there at the time, should not have foiled the exercise, so to speak. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, I agree. The national security has a prerogative to, in any form or shape, conduct a raid or an activity inviting anybody for questioning. Now, but there are processes, to de-escalate situations that hitherto should not even have gotten to a level where supporters will amass to the homes of, these personalities. And I think if the national security, the NIB, would want to invite some of us who give them ideas about how to go about these raids, simply without attracting any kind of unnecessary accusations and all of that. Now, when you talk about the national security, it supersedes that of any individual's interest. If an individual is wanted, per evidence that needs to come in and answer questions, the national security can do so. Now, you realize that we're hearing that they do so in collaboration with the police, which is the right thing to do. Aside that, when you talk about such raids, if Chairman Wontumi really was needed for any, for him to assist with any kind of investigations, irrespective of whether the supporters were there, if this was a matter, of really national security, a threat, trust me, Chairman Wontumi would have been gotten to the office of the National Security or NID, even if the supporters were there. The state has a lot of power and authority to effect. And in matters okay, such as threats to national security, the state will use all its force. In this instance, the agency decided to de-escalate the situation so that they would avoid any confrontation with the people. But this is where I wish people would also be advised that in instances like this, you don't involve yourself in this issue because you don't know per evidence what has been laid down against the said person. So if you're supporting and then you realize the evidence against the said person is very huge and it's going to implicate him, then what have you done? I think we should support with reason, not just because we belong to a political group. So then, each and every one of us should understand that when it comes to matters of national security, the state has a lot of authority to effect the arrest using brute force. So we should be very careful. If the state authorities decide to de-escalate the situation, strategic withdrawal, this is what I call it. It doesn't mean that he's off the charts.
Right.
We withdraw strategically, we regroup, and then we come back. There has been an agreement with the said, gentleman to come to the authorities and then answer questions.
Dr. Okay, but you see how Chairman Wontumi himself in that audio clip that we heard earlier interprets this whole situation. Is he wrong for his interpretation? Because he seems to suggest to the Ghanaian people that he is being persecuted. But let me also put it in perspective for those watching. We do not know why this is happening, but we also know that in the last few weeks, Chairman Wontumi has been the center of an FIC investigation. There's also been a petition against him concerning his mining company, Akunta Mining. Yet here he is, creating the impression he is being persecuted. What readings do you make into this?
So let me use the word your reporter used, an avalanche of, probable causes why he's being wanted. It may be connected to either of them or multiple of them. Now, for anybody to come out in this form, especially an opposition member, now let's look at the personality, okay? This gentleman commands the following. We have people in the country that when they pick a phone or make a plea, we need people here, they must up immediately. He's one of those people. How do you deal with such people so to avoid unnecessary allegations? And you realize that in all this, there's a name being mentioned, the president's name. So it means that the connotation is sensed out that, or the meaning is sensed out is that the president is the one directly, commanding issues, which may not be the case because you have state institutions that have been mandated to perform their tasks. So then, supporters who may not be able to reason out logically will just take in what is coming out from the chairman's, remarks. So we need the institution, the state institutions to come out clearly. It doesn't take anything away from them to come out and say, the said gentleman is needed for questioning on A, B, and C to put clarity in the minds of people. You wouldn't have people massing up in front of their homes when people know the reasons why you're picking them out. It even makes you open. People believe more in you. It builds trust. I think the state institutions should learn that. Of course, there are some informations that will not come out before you effect the arrest. But those that you need to put out there for clarity, to avoid these circumstances, I think we should put out there. And then for the said gentleman, yes, he has every right to say people should come. It doesn't break any law. But where the law, would deal with people is when they try to obstruct justice or obstruct, the authorities from performing their role. That the authorities have the choice to use brute force, minimal force, or to strategically withdraw.
We also see how the opposition party, the NPP, appears to capitalize on this to rile up their base. Do you find that to be troubling?
It will be troubling if the right information does not go out to the people. Are these gentlemen really what is coming out as being alleged? Are they at fault? If they are, then I believe that any political organization would know that the law will take its course. If not, that is why I call the state authorities to come out with information for people to know, well-meaning Ghanaians to know why A, B, and C will be being asked to come. And any political party would capitalize on any gap or loophole, even your enemies, okay, would try and capitalize on a gap if you falter. So this is exactly what any political party would do. Where are the gaps in it? How can we capitalize on it? How can we draw sympathy to ourselves? And this is what exactly is happening. So if state institutions should go by the book, trust me, whatever any political party does, we have logically thinking people who would know the light from the dark. So then, those calls to matter, you'd be surprised. You wouldn't even get a single soul.
I see. Doc, finally, just before you go, in the coming days, do you expect, the government, the NIB, to speak to these issues and put them into proper perspective and perhaps to rest the speculations around these incidents?
Yes, I strongly think they should come out with some clarity on issues. I mean, for the first gentleman, the Kumi gentleman, we know why. But for Chairman, there's a lot of issues surrounding him. It will be, very apt for the state agencies to come out and tell the public that the said gentleman is wanted for A, B, and C. It doesn't take anything away from them. What it rather does is try to be transparent to the people why we need A, B, and C. So if tomorrow I'm called to come and assist, I will gladly present myself. And then we should also know that per the laws, whether I put out information which is wrong or I have engaged in activities which is unlawful, I have the responsibility to answer to the call of the state institution or agencies when and if I'm called upon.
Indeed.
The state agencies should also come out clearly when I'm being asked to come. Where are they taking me?
Absolutely,
my lawyer
Doc.
can be there. At
Indeed,
least
Doc.
these openness will be good.
Very well, Doc. We'll leave our conversation here. I do appreciate your time with us. Dr. Victor Doka is a security consultant. We've been talking about some national security operations that took place today, one of which was foiled by party supporters in the Ashanti region. The other, we know the gentleman in question, Alfred Kumi, has been released in the last few hours of the evening. And we've been putting all of that into perspective and address public concerns about the national security operations and also, the spins that have been put on this matter. You're here on Ghana Tonight. I'm Keminni Amanor. Do join us with your comments and questions. Remember to use the hashtag Ghana Tonight. But when we come back, you remember that lawsuit at the Supreme Court by the old Tafo MP, Vincent Asifua. Remember that it was thrown out of the court. Now we understand why the Supreme Court, in a 3-2 majority decision, did not agree to injunct the process seeking to impeach the now suspended Chief Justice. I'll tell you more after this break. Don't go away. Welcome back. This is still Ghana Tonight here on TV3 and 392.7 FM. I'm Keminni Amanor. Let's get right into it. Because on May 6, 2025, the Supreme Court dismissed an injunction sought by Member of Parliament for Old Tafo Vincent Eko-Asifua against commencement of proceedings to hear 3 petitions to remove Justice Gertrude Saki Tokonu. The 5-member panel, in a 3-2 majority decision, dismissed the injunction brought by the Old Tafo MP. Now, tonight, the Supreme Court has published the full reasoning by both the majority and the dissenting justices in an 81-page document. My producer, Dennis Wedam, has been studying this document, and he'll show us some key portions. Counsel, what do we know?
Well, so let's start off by going back to see the judges who sat on this particular case and how the voting went, for which reason that petition was dismissed. So those judges on the top, you would recall that there was an original panel, but for some reason that panel had to be reconstituted because we got the understanding that one of the panel members was appointed to be on that committee that was looking into petitions seeking the removal of the Chief Justice. So then the new panel was reconstituted. In there, you had the acting Chief Justice by then, Justice Paul Bafuboni. You have Justice Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, Justice Yoni Kolendi, Justice Amadou Tanko, and Justice Enejizeu. So when you look closely at those at the bottom and those with the green ticks, so Justice Bafuboni, Justice Yoni Kolendi, and Justice Amadou Tanko were those in the majority. So it was by their decision that that particular injunction was dismissed. The remaining 2, Justice Henrietta Mensah Bonsu and then Justice Enejizeu, for them, they dissented. And we're going to go straight into it. A lot of things have been said, but for tonight, we'll just focus on what the court itself said was the crux of the application, because they had to look into it to see if indeed it met the threshold for that injunction application to be granted.
Right.
But if you recall, the crux of Vincent's case was that when the petitions were presented to the president started the process of consultation with the Council of State without giving notice to the affected Chief Justice.
Right.
For that reason, his view was that the process was unconstitutional, and then based on that, he sought the interlocutory injunction. Now, this is how the majority looked at the issue, looking at the documents that were attached and analyzing same. And they make reference to one of the key documents that were in there. They labeled it Exhibit B, but this will be a document, a letter that was written to the Chief Justice to inform her about the petitions and also to receive her comments to continue with the process. Now, in that document, they say it was dated 28th of March, that in the first paragraph of this letter, the President informs the Chief Justice of his receipt of the petitions, and then also in paragraph 2 of that exhibit, they actually go ahead to quote exactly what the letter says. That following receipt of these petitions on the 24th of March 2025, His Excellency wrote to the Chairman of the Council of State, forwarding the petitions and informing the Council of State, in accordance with the consultation process required under Article 1466, he intends, as an initial step, to send the petitions to you, the Chief Justice, for your preliminary comments on this. Now, the interpretation of the majority in this matter is that by this letter, the President was informing the Chief Justice and also indicating to the Chief Justice that the petitions had been forwarded to the Council of State. Also asking the Council of State that they had forwarded the petitions to the Chief Justice. Mind you, in that letter, they did indicate that they were asking to get the green light from the Council of State for some number of days to be given to the Chief Justice.
Right.
It is the interpretation of the majority in this particular matter, or the understanding, that this meant that that opportunity was given to her. And if you go, they actually make emphasis on certain keywords when they highlight words like initial, and that's... So when you read the paragraph 19, it says that exhibit, that letter we just read, actually assures the Chief Justice that her comments and responses to the petitions will be sought before the prima facie determination is made.
Right.
So what they are saying is that by virtue of that letter, they did what Vincent said they did not do.
Indeed. And
that's Vincent basing his argument on the fact that there was a communication from the presidency to the effect that some petitions had been received and that they were forwarded to the Council of State was indeed not the beginning of the process itself, for which reason he would argue that the process had started without notice to the Chief Justice.
Right.
So based on this, since the entire case was basically built on this, and for an injunction to be granted, the court needs to see if there's an issue to be tried, a serious one at that. The court came to the conclusion that
he did not meet
that threshold. So I think, for emphasis, yes, that it clearly communicates to the Chief Justice that her comments and responses were the first matter to be considered before the President and the Council of State to evaluate the petitions to determine whether the petitions had met the prima facie threshold. For this reason, it is also inaccurate that the President initiated consultations with the Council of State to determine a prima facie case without first notifying the Chief Justice of the petitions. So after having done the analysis, this is the conclusion that they reached on that score.
Right, but the dissenting voices veer off this slightly.
Yes, for the dissenting voices, their argument is that no, the first time the Chief Justice got to hear about the petitions was when the presidency issued a statement to announce that the President had received petitions and had forwarded same to the Council of State. They are of the opinion that by that announcement, it had already triggered conversation in the media and that the Chief Justice was subjected to public trial, which in their view even clouded or had the potential of clouding the judgment of whoever was supposed to look into the process.
Right.
For them, they thought the right process was for her to have been in the know even before the public got to know, especially so when it was a Chief Justice who was to respond to those matters.
Very well, Dennis. Thank you for bringing us those key portions. Let's spend the last few minutes with legal practitioner Christian Malm-Hesse. Thank you so much, Christian, for your time here on Ghana Tonight. But listen, you have seen this report. What's your reaction to it?
Good evening and good evening to your viewers alike for having me here. If you could run the question in respect of the context.
Indeed, I'm asking what your reaction is to the full reasoning we are now seeing for the decision taken earlier this month.
In respect of the decision by the Supreme Court as given out now?
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, it just came out and it's just a mix. It's just a mix of digestion of it, and we are all getting the conclusions of it. So to make scholarly deductions out of it.
I see. I mean, based on what you have read so far, just two things I want you to analyze for me, and then we can call it a night. The first one being whether or not the majority's decision after facts was enough to dismiss the injunction. The other one being whether or not we could pick any new information on for future purposes from the dissenting voices in this ruling.
Yes, I mean, basically, I cannot pretend as though I have read everything and be as pious as I could be as a person, but basically, I have just been cherry picking in what has just come off because it's quite of a reading and having been convoluted with the business of the day as well. But yes, I mean, having cited the decision by Henry Mensah Bonsu, it is one that she indicates a position which I find as pioneering judicial independence and not necessarily contacting or basing it on the fact that we need to allow the external forces, whether from general public or from the executive, to crowd out what the position should be when it comes to judicial independence. She sought out to uphold the flag of judicial independence and how the basis of prima facie evidence came about in respect of the fact that because, before the Chief Justice could be apprised with it, it was quite in the public domain. And even before the decision about that was made, it meant that the prima facie decision mandatory from the general public.
Indeed, Christian, I'd love to continue this conversation.
The decision of
but unfortunately, I am out of time, and so we'll leave it here for now. Thank you so much. Christian Malm-Hesse is a legal practitioner. We've been looking at the full reason behind the Supreme Court's decision to throw out an interlocutory injunction application against the processes against the now suspended Chief Justice. It will bring us to a close of tonight's program. But as we have always done, a quick preview of what is to come tomorrow, 7 a.m. here on TV3 and on 392.7 FM. Alfred Kumi will bring you the week's biggest stories together with his panelists. Also join me on Sunday at 2 p.m. for another episode of Hot Tissues, where I sit down with the CEO of COCOBOT, Dr. Randy Abe. Some of the revelations in that interview are mind-blowing. You want to make time to watch that as well. But right now, I'd say to you, have a good weekend, a very pleasant one. I will see you on Sunday. Good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.